calling it out now. A lot of people are weak, and a lot of people are so, I don't even know if I got the word for it right now. It's like we're just like sitting here with our hands out, like, please, Sim, I have another. It's just like starving for the life we really want. And we're waiting for someone to come along and drop a crust of bread in our hands so we can start the journey. There's this sense of begging. There's this sense of I'm not worthy. And that just has to end. Hello, everyone. How's it going? Welcome back to day 2 of MOXIE. If we met yesterday and you guys watched day 1, I'm your host, Kim Fisher, the creator of MOXIE, CEO of Kim is Manifesting, and the director of the Rise Revolution. So welcome to my holistic empowerment world. MOXIE, we are really diving into what is the mind, body, and soul of someone who takes unstoppable action. And MOXIE is really about the season of balls to the wall, unapologetically in love with yourself and your life. Don't you want to get there? Like, doesn't that sound amazing? Yes, of course it does. So let's dive into day 2. Yesterday in day 1, we talked about decision making and identity and how really important those two factors are for you even getting close to achieving your goals in the fastest, most efficient, most feel-good, stabilizing, safe way. That is so critical. So all good if you're here right now and you haven't watched day 1, but I really encourage you, do not skip a day. Make sure that you, get back to my notes here. Make sure that you watch day 1. Okay. So yesterday we talked about 3 things primarily. Why is it important to decide? What is that energy all about? What does it do? 2, what do you do? How do you really experience life, and why should you experience life in a certain way after you make a decision? And 3 was all about what are the common misunderstandings that people really have when it comes to goal creating and succeeding in your goals. And specifically yesterday, we talked about that space in between after you've decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and just be her now. I'm just going to be that incredible person now before the goal actually comes, and you actually identifying as that person. There's that space in between where we're not quite fully identified, not quite fully that full person embodied as them, walking like them, talking like them, eating like them, living like them. There's still a there's still a lot of tendrils to who we are right now and even to the past. And when you have that gap in the beginning, when it's really wide and you're in what I call the season of development, you have to have certain elements in place. You have to have certain rituals and habits and skill sets in place to help you manage that gap. Otherwise, that gap is going to feel like hell. And this is where a lot of people get caught up in it's not happening yet. And then they overthink, okay, well, am I even on the right path? And they start to worry and they start to spiral into doubt. And then they exit as fast as they can from the path, from the commitment. This is where people start to not only overthink, but really doubt themselves and disturb their nervous system and shit all over themselves and just be like real big jerk faces to themselves. I don't know how else to say it. Like we can really torture ourselves in this stage while we're waiting to fully feel like we're there. And you guys, this is such a beautiful step because while you're learning how to become every single day that best version of yourself, that identified embodied self who can achieve the goal, who is the athlete, who is the musician, who is the author, who is the artist. While you're waiting to fully feel like that, you're going to learn so much about the ways you sabotage yourself. So when you're in that season of development, I want you to be prepared for and look out for feelings of, I don't want to be here anymore. And this feels like shit. And how come she's further ahead? And how come I'm not further ahead? And how come he's doing it? And how come the money's not here yet? And how come the notoriety and fame's not here yet? Hold on to those desires, but at the same time, don't hate where you're at. because that same attitude is going to pop up when you're actually doing the thing, when you're actually that person. Like you're going to be in such higher amounts of success and visibility and money, and all that's going to magnify who you are. So while no one is looking, who are you? While no one's looking, and while you don't have the physical environment yet that says you're full on artist or you're full on athlete or you're full on, whatever it is that you think will physically come into your 3D world that will accompany this space of I am fully them now, while you're waiting for that to show up, don't doubt yourself to the point where you drop out of the race or you drop out of the engagement. So many people do, and you're really cutting yourself off from a huge opportunity of learning about yourself. So to manage that gap and to make time there more pleasant, we need to look at and call in what is the strategy to help you govern that gap and manage the gap well so that we don't self-sabotage. And by the way, in episode 4, I really get into avoiding the traps and what ego death really is like and the role that it serves in this process of you stepping into a new identity. So more to come on the traps. But right now, I really want to get into what is the strategy? What are the tools that you can put into place in your life right now? Because a lot of you are feeling like you're in the middle of two identities. A lot of you are feeling right now like it's just like you're in a free fall. And if you feel that way, I know how that is completely. And it can be a really scary and isolating moment. And it's almost like this is the time period that life is recalibrating for you. And while you're letting go of your old self and getting ready to embrace the new self, it really does feel like a death. You have to mourn the old you. At the same time, stay excited and charged up and passionate for the new you. And that's not always easy to do, but it's easier when you have some strategies or what I refer to as the glue in place for the motivation. So today's topic is all around the glue of motivation. And when you are in that season of development, we want the glue to act like a binding mechanism that's binding you and the identity of your future self close together and often. We want high amounts of energy, high amounts of emotion, and we want it consistently done. So keep in mind that these ideas are cut and paste, okay? I want you to be able to think about this list and think immediately, does this work for me or not? Am I even interested in this activity? Does this work for me? If it doesn't, discard it. I think we need to get out of the mindset that the one way it works for one person is the way it needs to work for you. Part of the path of empowerment is understanding that you have choice and you get to decide what works best for you. And trial and error gets to be a part of that. Like try a lot of cool things. You never know. You might try something that I suggest as a glue and you'll be like, all right, I actually didn't think I'd like that, but it worked. It put me in this really unusual place, and that got me thinking about X, and then X got me thinking about Y, and then before I knew it, I was on to Z, and Z is exactly where I wanted to be. And as a general rule, and what I've learned is that the unknown, the scary, I want to say like stinky and stretchy and sweaty places that you don't want to go to are the very rooms that hold your transformation. And I'm loosely referencing VW, Victoria Washington. She's one of my mentors. And she's right. I think of her every time that I have hesitation towards doing something, whether that's reading a book or learning a new skill or joining a particular program. If I'm like, well, I have resistance, first thing I do is I question that resistance. You want to make sure that you're not stopping yourself at critical points of growth. Most often and more than not, the rooms, the people, the conversations that bring up resistance inside of you are the very rooms that are going to hold the keys to your transformation. Just keep that in mind as we speak about this season of development. which is the season, as you know, that has to take place. We have done a great job at skipping over development. And think about it, you're developing yourself, you're molding and shaping yourself into the identity of the person who is the top athlete, the top chef, the top artist, the top singer, whatever it is that you want to do. We have to spend time in close proximity with how that person lives. So the glue is meant for you to sort of try before you buy, and to play with the energy of what that new life is going to be like and feel like. And you guys, this gets to be really fun. This gets to be really exciting and experimental. So please go into it with that attitude. When I speak about the glue, what I'm really referring to are the practical skills and tools that you guys already know about. So I'm not going to mention anything new here, but what I am doing is I'm putting all of these into a new category for you, a new parent category that's called glue. And it's the glue of motivation. So think about that before I list off the things. The glue of motivation, right? Because if I need to get to point A to point B, and point A is my decision point, but point B is the identity, and I feel very far away from being that top athlete, then I know that I need some things that bind me to her, to this identity. And I need it to be in the spirit or in the essence of motivation. Because if I don't have motivation, I'm not going to go for it, right? So all of these tasks that I'm about to list off are like rituals that are meant to bring you motivation. Notice I'm not saying motivation comes to you. What I'm really trying to drive home here is that motivation is something you create inside of yourself. Do not wait for motivation to come to you. More than likely, it will not. Being in an inert, stable, not stable as in safety, but stable as in complacent spot in your life will not bring you motivation. Motivation is a feeling inside. Has a kinetic energy to it. It has a momentum feeling to it. You need to be in a state of momentum. You need to be in a state of action in order to open up and receive inspiration and motivation. So when I say things like the glue of motivation, what I'm really referring to are things like meditation, mindfulness, breath work, all of the manifesting practices, ecstatic dance, radical ritual method. If you're in my world, you know what that is. Exercise, fitness, running, vision boarding, tarot card pulls, all of the things that bring you into a high vibrational state, motivated state. Yeah. That is the glue that I'm talking about. We cannot have a conversation about goal creation and being able to push the start and be the motherfucker who goes for it. We can't talk about that if we're not talking about your embodiment practices. It drives me a little bonkers when people are like, I want to go and be this great artist. I want to go and be a better parent and friend. I want to leave this job and go do that crazy job over there. And everyone's going to go, what are you doing with your life? And you don't have an embodiment practice. Where are you going to go for the renewable resource of confidence? Part of MOXIE is this, and we're going to talk about this more tomorrow, but MOXIE, someone who has MOXIE is someone who can continuously pump their own selves up, someone who is consistently able to cheer themselves on without external motivation. I'm just calling it out now. A lot of people are weak, and a lot of people are so, I don't even know if I got the word for it right now. It's like we're just like sitting here with our hands out, like, please, Sim, I have another. It's just like starving for the life we really want, and we're waiting for someone to come along and drop a crust of bread in our hands so we could start the journey. There's this sense of begging. There's this sense of I'm not worthy, and that just has to end. And I know you want that to end, but we have to understand that it's all a part of one whole system. We're not just going to get to the finish line because you've decided. We're not just going to get to the finish line because you get to the start line. We actually are going to get there because there's many pieces that you do that drop into your life. And it all gets to be about motivation. It all gets to be about what you want to do. So it all gets to be awesome. Like, do you understand how cool that is? So this isn't punishment or a life sentence that you have to suddenly get skilled with your time management. This isn't a punishment or a heavy burden that you suddenly have to start doing embodiment and energy practices. This is like, oh, thank God that this is the room I get to go into, because deep down inside of you, you know that this is the way forward. And now we're just calling it out and putting it in a system so that you can see how it's a part of the whole, rather than it just being out there as this oddball thing that you do once in a while to elevate your energy and connect to your ancestors and source. Why don't we bring it into the everyday life? There's a thought. And like, really make it a part of your daily routine and just see what happens. Like, we've got to be in this experimentation mode a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to dial it back a little bit. Went off on a rant. So it's your accountability. It is your time management skills, just as much as it is about your woo-woo practices. And I'm all about the woo-woo practices, not knocking on the woo-woo. I do some really bizarre woo-woo shit in this room right here. Right over there is my little meditation Zen den, and a lot of weird shit goes down in there. Really weird shit that I'll never show you guys. I'll never show that because I don't need to. This is the result. Do you see what I'm saying? Ooh, let's go back. What you're seeing right now, this camera, this whole set that took me like a week to figure out how to do. There's pages of notes that took me 5-6 days to write. I researched the topic of MOXIE. But you're seeing right now the finished product. You're seeing the finish line, which you understand that I got here because I started. But you also now know intuitively, I didn't even need to tell you, but you can sense and you can see that there's some level of preparation that went into this. There's some level of thought. This whole pop-up podcast is an example that and proof that I lived in the season of development to allow space for this idea to form in my brain. And then I tried the set and I moved the table around, figuring out what the fuck to do with this mic. I mean, I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this podcast. This is just this mic and figuring out where to attach it and getting it at the right volume and going back and forth and figuring out the sound. It was a whole thing, you guys. I knew this is how it goes. There's a moment where the thing you want is bigger than the skill set you currently have. And it's going to take you being willing to be the beginner, to learn, to be open again, and to want to be outside of your comfort zone. And that's easy to do when you surrender to the process that actually needs to take place. A lot of you just won't slow down. And if you can, if you will be able to create masterpieces in your life. You'll be able to create things that you're really proud of. Yeah, it was challenging, but the outcome is incredible. And who you become in the process, how it has changed you and developed you. You getting it? All of that contains the seed and the essence of the finish line. This is why I said it yesterday in episode 1. Screw the finish line. You don't even really need to focus on that, because everything you do in preparation to the start line contains the soul and essence and seeds of the finish line. How do I release the podcast out? That's what I said. That's what I asked myself. How do I get this done to the point where you're viewing it right now in the way you're viewing it? Well, I'm going to need to figure out the format. Am I doing it on YouTube? Okay, well, how am I going to record it? What's the sound? What's the lighting? What's the script? What's the cadence? How many days? When do I want to release it? Why do I want to release it then? What's after that? What happens after that? Oh, they sign up for MOXIE 1.0. Okay, well then, great. Now what about the set? Okay, where are you going to film it? What about the time of day? How many days you're going to film? What about clothing? What about hair? What about the whole thing, right? Everything was thought about. And all of those are little building blocks that you do in the season of development to get toward the finished product. So you don't even need to focus on the finished product. Know what it looks like, know what you want, but then go backwards and hunker down, simmer, and be willing to be cooked by the heat, by the discipline of developing yourself, of being developed, of being changed, of being transformed, being created through. This is the stuff of ancient times, you guys. I'm speaking about the things that no one will do anymore. But this right here, for those of you that are watching, I will speak no greater truth in 2023. If you listen to what I'm saying right now and you do it, you will separate yourself from the mass. You will separate yourself from the herd. You will emerge as a unique, innovative, creative individual with their own voice and their own mind and their own soul. You will emerge as a leader because you have decided what you stand for and you decided where you're headed. And I don't care if it's, I'm going to move to Paris to become a famous artist, or if you've decided, like me, that you love limoncello LaCroix drinks. I'm not sponsored, but will one day love to be. Thank you. Okay. Got to put it out there, right? So, getting back to the point of today, the glue of motivation is going to ask you to surrender to the heat, to the cooking of discipline, and know that you are going to burn off the old you in order to make room and make space for what wants to come out of you. All of this, every building block along the way contains the seed and contains the essence of your final product, of your final goal. So trust the process, TTP, all the way. And to manage the gap, to manage the season, we need elements, we need structure so that while you're being developed and while you're growing, as hard as that is sometimes, and how crazy it is sometimes, and how frustrating it is sometimes, we need systems in place to catch your human self and to soothe it, to heal it, to raise it, to lower it, to massage it. Daily practices of embodiment. We need energy practices. We need practices of breath work and meditation. Time to contemplate the path we're on. Time to study who we are right now and where we're headed. And time to feel excited about it. So all of these somatic practices, energy practices, don't forget good sleep, hydration, good food. All of this is in celebration of who you're becoming. And the caveat here is that you can't do all these as you. What do I mean by that? Anything you focus on grows. So if I am doing all of these glue work, right, the glue to bring me closer to my identity, but yet I'm doing it all through the lens of my current self, I'm only amplifying my current self, my current thoughts, my current behavior, my current ecosystem inside of Kim. As great as it is inside of you, it's still not the future identity, right? So what I advise you here to do always is to call in the energy of your future self. Call in the identity of your future self. Bring them in, then do your embodiment work, then do your meditation, then do your energy practices, then fill in your Google spreadsheet or your timesheet or your calendar with what needs to get done. Because then you're concentrating on and magnifying and amplifying the energy of your future identity. And that is what we want to grow. So why am I mentioning all of this right now? Let's bring in a little bit of neuroscience to help us really understand why I'm hitting this point of you've got to bring in your future identity now to help you speed up and close the gap and manage the season of development so it creates more foundation, so it creates more safety and stability in your life so that you don't try to exit and jump out of the plane, okay? When we bring in neuroscience, we're going to talk about the brain in a couple different ways, but we're really going to look at the two ways that you can feed, in a sense, the neurons in the brain that are dedicated towards your next identity versus the identity of your current self. So, what neuroscience tells us is that our brains are malleable, meaning the neurons inside of the brain are plastic. Plastic means that they can move. So, we don't really think about the brain anymore as hardware as we do software. Software can move. And what I want you to think about is that certain thoughts, certain behaviors, certain identities, there's that word, identities in your brain are actually made up of a collection of neurons. These neurons, the more neurons they are, the tighter the complex, the tighter the neurons, the more neurons that are there, the more energy that's moving through it. And so when more energy is moving through a channel of neurons, that means that that is firing faster. And faster firing means that you have made a habit of that personality. That's all that means. When you identify as someone who's a smoker and you go to try to stop smoking, what happens? It's really hard, right? So it's not just the muscle memory of smoking. It's not just the oral fixation. It is that you identify as a smoker. So everything in your world, in your life, and in your brain was wired for I am a smoker. If you believe that you are a stoner loser, then you're probably going to sit around more in the house and you're probably going to watch some Netflix more than the person who identifies as a winner, as an athlete, as a go-getter, as a game changer, as a rebel. Those are all identities we take on. Do you see why this work is so important? Because remember, identities are built on your habits. Habits are based on the behaviors you do all the time, and behaviors are because of your identity. So, shoop, right back to the beginning. We have this positive loop. Identity is at the center and start and the end of it all. Your brain is sort of waiting for the cues you want to give it to shape itself into the person you want to be, who has specific thoughts, who has specific behaviors, okay, who has specific emotions. Your neurons are competing with each other. And the way they compete is by which energy and how much energy gets funneled into what circuitry. Now, by no means am I suggesting that there's sort of these levers in the brain and energy can get shut off and electricity only flows and synapses close here. Not like that. I'm giving you just more like a cartoony analogy to help you think about energy shutting off and shutting on. But I want you to know that energy flows everywhere in your brain all the time, okay? We're really just trying to redirect your attention and your focus to a different set of neurons that are about your new identity. So it turns out, according to neuro researchers, there are two main ways that you can sort of feed the new circuitry in your brain and start to form that strong synaptic connection. One is through frequency, and two is through intensity. Frequency. Frequency means how often are you thinking about your new self? How often are you in the mode of your new self, the new identity? How often are you walking like her, talking like her, eating like her, dressing like her, right? Like part of this whole outfit, you'll guys notice if you look on my Instagram page, you've been following me for a while, there's been a change, right? There's more bold colors. I work with like static TVs and old media now. I love like CD cover looks. I've got my ripped jeans on. These are my dad's old Levi vintage jeans that I ripped. This is a shirt with a car I'm going to own one day. It's a Chevy Camaro. Like I am a little more grunge, a little more rock and roll. And this happened in the last couple of months. Now I mention all of that because of the second point. We don't only want to change up our neurocircuitry through the lens of frequency. So thinking often, practicing often, walking, talking, being that person often. We want intensity. And when I say intensity, what I want you to think is emotion. I need you to get emotional about who you're becoming. Let it move you. Let it move you to tears. I'm not saying all dreams and goals you have, you're going to be like waterworks for. And that's not the only metric of is this a big enough goal? But start to practice visualizing and seeing yourself in that future state at the start line, about to do it for real, completely owning it, completely stable, completely grounded, fully and wholly identified as that person. Like you slip right into a full snowsuit and zip it up. Shoop, I'm her. I'm them. Let's go. There's no one else for the job but me. I'm the only one that can do it this way. And I'm so prepared. Let's go. You got a race for me to run? Let's go. You got a stage for me to be on? Let's go. You got an art show for me to be in? Let's go. You got a cooking show for me to, you need me on the podcast? You need me in front of the TV? You need me? Let's go. Because I've been preparing for this moment while no one's been looking. I've been in the season. I've been deep in it. I've been letting it develop me. I've been working through the hardship. I've been working through the frustration, and I never let it stop me. I never let it stop me. So now I'm that athlete. Now I've got that athlete mentality. So now when I arrive to the start block, I'm not arriving as a beginner who might be an athlete. I don't know. Let's see what finds out. No, I'm arriving to the fucking starting block knowing I'm going to win the fucking race. Let's go. I can't wait to blow you all away. That's the energy I want you to have. That's MOXIE, baby. That's some balls. That's some grit. That's some determination. Let's turn it up. Don't need no watered down fucking ugh shit. We want like real fire, right? Because that's what actually is required. No one's going to tell you we need your attitude. No one's really going to tell you we need your fire. No one's really going to come in and say, show me your ego. Show me your cockiness. Show me your bravado. But I'm saying it's safe to celebrate it. It's actually safe to step into it. Especially when it's in the container of, I know that I am serving source, serving God, serving community by stepping fully and answering the call of saying yes to what I'm here to do. This isn't about you. This is why cockiness and eagerness and bravado and MOXIE is safe and neutralized, because it's not just for us. We're not egomaniacs. We're saying, I'm so freaking into myself and I'm so into the mission I'm here to do, then nothing can stop me anymore. And why is that powerful? Because there's going to be a lot of doubters along the way. There's going to be a lot of moments where people won't believe in you. There's going to be money. There's going to be moments where money isn't coming in and you're like, okay, the bank account isn't showing what I need, or you're not getting the attention. You're not getting the public's eye as much as you thought. And there's a part of your brain that's going to want you to believe that that means you're not worthy. But you need to have something else to fall back on. You need a baseline that's already stable, that's right there like a rock. Right? And you're just going to land on that, and that's the identity. That is that identity piece. That is the MOXIE. That is the determination that I don't care what's going on around me in my environment. I don't need the external stimulation anymore. I don't need the external positive stimulus anymore. I am the positive stimulus. It's me. So don't tell me I can't be on this stage. Don't tell me I can't be in the room. Don't tell me I can't be there. Mind, don't you even try to tell me. We belong there. And if not there, I'm going to go create it over here. And now we're creating our own rooms for us to step into. Now we're creating our own races. We're creating our own stages. We're creating our own art galleries. We are making our own space, which is sometimes what you do have to do. Whew. Yes. Hold up. I need a drink. Woo. Okay. 2 ways to work on creating a faster and smoother and larger, more powerful synaptic connection in your brain for and in favor of your new identity is 1, frequency, and 2, passion or uh, emotion. Okay, we need it to be intense. The intensity needs to be up. I just showed you intensity, did I not? That is the level I need you at for what you desire to become. If you got to practice it behind closed doors, do it. You got to walk around your house shouting in the mirror, I'm coming for you. Whatever. Do it. Do it. You have so much to risk by not doing it. Think about it. There's a lot at risk by you not stepping into fully who you were meant to be. Part of stepping into who you're meant to be, let's ground this really in science, is feed the neurons that are who you want to be. How? I already told you. 1, practice often. Be in relationship often with the energy and the intention of your future self. So do that through the glue. Go back to that glue practice. Do that often to help you manage the season of development so that it feels stable and feels good. The second way you do this is through intensity. Increase your emotion for what you want to do. Sometimes that's all you need to do is allow yourself to feel it. I want to end here with asking you, what would it look like to increase the frequency for which you think about your goals and your dreams? What would that look like if you were to close your eyes right now and just dream for a second? How would you want to increase the frequency? What do you see yourself doing? And I highly suggest writing that down. So spend a little bit of time, either now, pause this and do it, or do this after, but think about how you want to spend time in close proximity. See yourself going through some glue exercises. How do you want that glue to be? Know that it's important to do the glue, and then go ahead and schedule it in, because what we need you to do is not only think about the frequency, think about and see yourself doing it, but actually schedule it. Then I want you to think about, how would you increase the intensity? If we need frequency, but we also need intensity to go up in order to feed the neurons of that new identity to become her faster and sooner and bigger and bolder and badder, then what are you going to do to increase the emotion? I would suggest here not only thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to sit in my room and I'm going to feel it and see it until I cry. Okay, do that. But also tell someone in your family where you're headed. Tell them about this podcast. Tell them about what you're going to try and let them go, huh? And then you go like, like feel the fear of, oh my God, I just vocalized it. That is a great way to start intensifying the experience. Your brain pays attention to that. And a lot of areas of your brain actually pay attention to that. And they're like, oh, this must be important. Not only did she say it out loud now, that's the first time she said it out loud to anyone else other than herself in the mirror. But 2, she just felt a very strong emotion. I don't care that it's fear. It's just a strong emotion. And then I want you also to be open here, okay, to that when you are in the season of development and we're working on our daily rituals, know along the way that you are going to get some kickback from your brain. And the energy system itself, your emotions especially, might feel a little bit weird and off for a little bit. So I want you also to know that in that moment, that is a good thing. It means that you're choosing something new over something known. And things that are new can be scary. They're not really, they're just unknown. Our reaction to it is that it's scary. So see past the fear and just label it unknown and know that this is exactly where you're supposed to be headed. Allow the feedback that you're getting from your emotions, from your mind, from your thoughts to be exciting. And if they feel a little off, they are a sign you're on the right track. Tomorrow, day 3, we're going to be talking about what it actually means to be in what I refer to as the MOXIE mode. And we're also going to be talking about time mastery. These two things are really important to give more shape to this idea of why we're even using this word MOXIE. What does this really mean? I went with intensity today, and I definitely told you more about MOXIE, what I think it really means to be someone that has that character set. But I also feel like there's more to talk about, specifically in the season of development. That's a macro season. We actually have some micro seasons inside of the macro. So we're going to get into the nitty gritty details tomorrow. We're going to talk about that micro season that's actually called the MOXIE mode. And I'm also going to reveal to you my top time management strategies and tie in why time management is so, so critical to you managing the season of development, as well as life while you're running your sprint, life while you're at the starting block about to run. Okay? Thanks, guys, so much for being here. And I will see you beauties tomorrow.